This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, uh, let's continue with the test class concept. That was a topic we started last week, right? I mean by Monday. So what is test class? A test class is a class we write to test the actual class. The test class is used to test the actual class and the trigger. So we need to do the code coverage minimum 75% for an Apex class to migrate to production. Similarly, for Apex trigger, we need to at least cover some percentage of code coverage. What is code coverage? A number of Apex lines executed through the test class out of total number of executable lines in the Apex in percentage. So that is going to be your code coverage. So code coverage field is a field in Apex class that would get calculated only when you execute the class your class lines. If you execute your every method of your class through the test class, then there is a code coverage field in the class that will get updated, right? That will get updated. So only when you execute the method of your class through the test class framework. So what is the syntax to write your test class? It should start with annotation at is test, and a method should be a static method. Void does not return any value, and method will also have annotation called at is test annotation keyword. Okay, so how we are going to run this class? I can run this class by click on this button in the developer console, or else I go here and go with new run, select the class, and then select the method in the class. So your class can have a number of more than one method also. When you test your logic, business logic, any class, it's best practice having different methods for to test individual business logic. The reason, when you made any changes to the particular uh, a method, then you need not rerun the every method as part of your testing. You need not rerun every method as part of your the whole class as part of your testing. Instead, you can only run only the particular method when you work on that particular logic in your class. Okay, so it's best practice to have more than one method. So each method will handle a particular business logic, test a particular business logic. And the testing framework is nothing but you execute all the lines of your actual class through the test class. Okay, when you are able to execute all the lines in your actual class, I mean the method in a logic in a method, the code coverage will be done. But that is not going to be that's not going to serve the actual purpose, whether the method is working as expected. So reason we go for comparing the values using system asset equals method, system asset method, and so that we'll make sure the logic is working as expected. So this is a best practice again, asserting the value. This is not going to add any code coverage, but it's always good practice to compare the values between the actual and expected, right? So, and we have taken example of an account class, and we tested using a testing test class like this. And there are some consideration we have seen. What is that? From your test class, you cannot access the organization data. From your test class, you cannot have access to organization data. There are two types of data in organization we have. One is non-setup object, another is setup object. How do you categorize the object? Non-setup, setup. When you say non-setup, when you say setup, for example, when you say setup, when you say setup, the setup is nothing but the setup objects are nothing but whatever the permission related data you are storing, your user profile, right? A permission set. So these are the objects comes under a category called setup objects. So we have two types of object, non-setup, setup. When you say non-setup, other than permission related data like your account contact, all your custom objects comes under non-setup objects. Okay, so why we categorize this? When you access the when you run a SOQL query within your test class against the non-setup objects, you will not get any data. That's what you have seen in the test class, right? When you do this count, what happens? You get zero. You don't get any data here. This is basically a non-setup object. You'll follow this. So this is going to be a non-setup objects. So within your test class, we cannot access a data from your organization for non-setup objects, but your setup objects data will be available. I can get all the user data for username. I can get the ID. I can get the profile. So those data will be available within the test class, but non-setup objects data will not be available. So then, how do you test? How do you compare your? How do you test your actual class? Then we are going for preparing our own test data. We are preparing our own test data and do the testing, right? So this part is basically data test data preparation. I insert some 50, 60 accounts, then I check the count and make sure, right, in the database there are 60 accounts. Then I test this class where the method is inserting an account. Then then I query the database for the account whatever inserted. Then we are comparing with the old count and new count. So basically the old count was supposed to be zero in case if you are not inserting any test data. So we prepare our test data and then we are testing against that data. So that's a right, because when you migrate the class to the production data will be different, your test region data will be different. So we cannot rely on organization data. We cannot test your class depending on with the help of your organization data. Instead, you prepare your own test data and test your application. Got me? But in some cases, you may not have a proper data in your. You cannot able to prepare. You may not able to prepare your own test data. So this just an account object. Sometimes in real time, you have very complex set of data in object, some custom objects, where you cannot prepare the data on your own. In that case, in that scenarios, you will go for see all data equal to true, which is not a best practice, but there are some situation where you may not able to prepare your own data that due to complexity of the data, then we'll go for see all data equal to true as a parameter will give with the at is test annotation. If you give this see all data equal to true at the class level, then what does it mean? the whole class the whole class is going to have access to the organization data, right? If you going if you give at the class level, only for the specific method you would like to give access to the organization data, we go for CL data equal to true with that particular method alone, right? Only this method is going to have access to the organization data. Okay, I think you should ask why you have a void method. It's a framework We are not going to call this method and get the any value from this method. So this is a testing framework. We are not going to call this method and get the return value or something, right? So this is a framework we are going to run using run test. So the reason the framework is given like a static method. We are not writing this method. This is a framework we are following. A test class can have only a static method. That's it. Within which you are going to call your actual class. So this is a framework. We are not going with our own method here. Got me? A test class rule is it should start with artist annotation and it's going to have a static method, void static method with artist annotation, and within which you are going to test your logic. So this is a framework. Got me? You sure?
Thank you.
Right. Let's continue with the testing. Yeah. Let's continue with the testing. I have another method here. Uh, right. Before I continue, we are going to have another 45 minutes. We are going to connect. Then we'll because I'm not connecting from my home. I just connecting from Sadish home due to network issue. By 8 o'clock, I'll wind up, and if possible, I'll connect in another half an hour, 8:30 my time. Okay, I go back home and I'll see whether any possibility to connect there. So people try to connect at 8:30 and see whether I can able to continue or else we'll connect tomorrow. For me. So 8 o'clock I'll wind up the session now in another 40 minutes. Then I go to my 8:30 I will again try to connect. So just see whether 8:30 I'm able to continue or else I'm online or else we can just wait for 5 minutes, then we can else we can continue tomorrow, right? So this is a method I'm going to test. So what is the purpose of this method? The method is going to accept an argument and it's going to search against the existing uh, object, I mean account for industry. So I pass some industry value here. I get those records, what are the matching in the account in the collection. And this method is returning those matching records. So this is a method I'm going to test. So I'm just going with a different method. See, the test method can be written in two form. Can someone can put mute? Okay. A test method can take two form. One one way of writing a method, the syntax is we follow at is test annotation for the method, right? The other format is we can also have a keyword test method in front of void. In this case, I need not use artist test. There are another form, just it. There is no difference. One form will have a artist test annotation. Other form, instead of artist test annotation, we have test method keyword. That's it. Okay. We'll follow this like this. Static, void, say, here what I'm going to do, I'm going to include a keyword called test method. So this is a keyword, right? You see here, all the keywords will be highlighted in a different color in developer console. Okay, so this is a keyword, right? So here I'm going to test my logic. Either you go with artist test annotation or instead of this, we'll go with the keyword test method. So from here, I'm going to test that logic. So I just take the instance of the class, and this is a method of the class. What you're going to test. So what I'm going to pass here, energy, some industry I'm going to pass. So the method is going to return a list of account again, right? So what happens in this case when I test this? This is not going to give any result because within your test class, I will not have access to the organization data. Am I right? That's what we are discussing. This is going to return 0 only. Okay, but if you see in my account object, because when you pass energy here, what happens? When you pass energy here, what happens? The method is basically trying to get an account where industry equal to energy. There are 8 accounts are there, right? But what you will get here, you will get no record here. You will get 0 here. Am I right? System dot debug accs dot size. I'm going to display how many records it pulled. In query editor, we are able to get 8, right? 8 accounts we are able to get. Now I'm going to run this test. I'm going to run this test. So where you're going to check the system debug, you have to test here only, log. System debug statement will appear in the log only, right? So what I get? 0. So what we are going to do, we are going to prepare our test data here. We're going to prepare our test data. We'll follow this. So I'm going to prepare the test data to test this scenario. So let me prepare the test data in this form. Um, okay, to save the time, I just copy paste this. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm inserting some 5 accounts with industry energy, and I'm inserting some 100 more accounts, 100 more accounts, 50 to 150, right? Because test account 1, test account 2, in that name, I'm inserting 5 accounts with energy industry, and down the line again I'm inserting test account, okay, sequentially from 51, from 50, then I'm going to insert 100 more accounts till 150 with the industry as apparel. So when I give this, when now I have the test data. So this part is called a test data preparation. We'll follow this. So test data preparation. So once a test data is prepared, so I'm doing the actual testing here. So now I'm supposed to get here how many accounts are there in the database with industry energy? 0 to 4. It means 5 accounts supposed to be inserted. Am I right? So run the whole class. Then so there are 5 accounts, right? So that's we prepared our test data to test our class. We'll follow this. So how will you verify this? You can verify with the system asset equal. So what is the actual count? Okay, what is the expected count? So this should be equal to so get the expected count, actual count, uh, expected count, sorry, integer count equal to select count of from. Am I right? We'll follow this. So that's how we are comparing. We got the account from the database. Then we are comparing the account that we got from the class, actual class. So both should be equal. Okay. So check whether test has been done properly. Yes. And there are 75% code coverage has been done. So similarly, if you like to test how many apparels are there, there should be 50 from 50 to 1, right? There should be 100. Whatever the count we have inserted, that apparel should be there. So I'm repeating the same. So this part is basically test for energy. Now I'm testing it for apparel, case 1 and case 2. Just I'm going to repeat. So this time for apparel. We'll follow this. So what is the negative case? These are all positive cases we tested. The negative case must be if any other industry you pass, we should not have any data in the matching data. Any industry. Suppose I pass education. Testing has been done. Right, code coverage has been done. Right, we will follow this. So let's go with the next method. How to test it? Next method. So I'm testing the next method. So what is the method name? Get contacts. What is the purpose of the method? We pass account name. We get the contacts for that account. If the account has any child, it means contact. I get all the contacts in the form of list. So right. So what could be the actual testing? The actual testing is going to be uh, right, and then you pass some account name. I already inserted the account with some name here. Test account 1, test account 2, something. Okay, so let me first get how many accounts are there in the database. Simply I just trying to display the count. go to the log. So what I got here, I got 0. The reason, whatever data you prepared, the test data prepared in one method will not be available to other method. So what do you have to do here? We have to prepare the test data again for this method as well. So this method, we are going to prepare the data. The data prepared in another method will not be, one method will not be available to other methods in the um, within the test class. Got me? So now we are preparing our own data. See what I'm going to do. I'm just preparing my own data. Um, so just preparing the data like this. I'm inserting some account. Okay, in this case, energy is not required. I'm just preparing some account. Some, say some 50 accounts I'm inserting in the name test account 120 something, right? And then I'm inserting some contact for the account. So among these, I'm going to insert an account for a contact for one account. For every account, I'm inserting 3 contacts. Sorry, for every account, listen here, inserting 3 contacts for each account. So let's go with the 20 lesser accounts. For each accounts, I'm going to insert 3 contacts with the name test1, test2, test3. Again, it takes another account. Okay, the same ID I take and again inserting uh, a contact test1, 2. Again, for that, that's why I'm preparing, that's how I'm preparing the test data. So this part is called test data preparation. We'll follow this. Now, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the actual testing. Get contacts. Which account you're going to pass here? I'm going to pass test account 1, right? So what the method is going to return? Method is going to return list of contact. Okay. So the method is going to return list of contact, right? So now we are going to compare the results. So how will you compare the result? First get the count of from contact where name equal to test account 1. So this count should be equal to count comma count list dot size. Will follow this. So test has run successfully. So this part of the code has been covered. If you run your old testing, then we are able to do 100% code coverage. We tested all the part of the logic. We'll follow this. So we prepare the test data and proceed with the testing. Right? We prepare the test data and proceed with the testing. So if you see here, there is one uh, okay, the disadvantage we have in this type of method, test data preparation. In terms of test data preparation, we can still optimize this process because I repeatedly prepare the test data for every method, right? Because the test data I prepared in one method is not available to another method. So what we did, we repeatedly prepared the test data. The same similar data we are preparing repeatedly. So we can avoid this. We can avoid this by preparing the test data in one common place and access in multiple places. So this is an example where we prepare the test data repeatedly. Right. How we are going to optimize this? Listen here, how we are going to optimize? We are going to include a method called method with annotation at test setup. We are going to include a method with annotation at test setup. Class. Will follow this. So, so this is my test class. Okay, and in this method, I'm going to include a method with annotation test setup. So where I'm going to prepare the test data, a common test data for all the methods in my test class. For all the methods in my test class, I'm going to prepare a test data. How we are going to prepare a test data common for all the methods in my class? When you use annotation at test setup, what happens? Any data you insert, any database operation, any DML you do inside this method, that's going to be a static void method. Then the data will be available to all the methods in the class. So, right, for our application, we need account and contact. So what I'm doing here, we have three types of process here, right? One is inserting an account. Another is searching an account for industry. Another method, searching the contact for account. So accordingly, I prepare the test data in one common place by using the annotation at test setup. So what is the use of this annotation? This annotation will keep the data in the database till the whole test class execution. It means for every other method, the test data will be available. What happens in this case? We tried here, right? What happens? Whatever the test data inserted in another method will not be, one method will not be available to other method. So reason we go for repeated test data preparation, right? So that the type of repeated statement, repeated business logic you can avoid by using test setup in one common place, right? We prepare the test data in one method, right? According to your application testing, then I can access those data in another method. We'll follow this. We'll follow this. So that's what we are doing here. So, okay. So there's once, right? Once I prepare the test data, I'm testing my logic. So insert account test. We'll explain this. Okay, this part. Let's explain this part. Right. So these are actual testing. Right. So create the instance Basically, this is a class name. To call this test data function from another members. No, it's not required, Vijay. Let's hold on. I just copy pasted, so people might have confused. Wait, hold on. Listen, how I'm going to do this. So this is a class where we prepare the test data repeatedly. Am I right? Okay, right. Now, okay, we prepare the test data by using a test setup. Now I have the test data, right? So listen here. I'm removing this test data preparation now. What happens? Sorry. Okay, so this is the first method. I do not prepare the test data here. I remove this. I just go with the testing, right? I just check the get the before count. Okay, so before count and after count. So in the after count, what type of account I inserted here? Um, See, this part is quite easiest part. Basically, we are just inserting an account and test this. That's it. Okay, this is a first method you are testing. No? We already prepared the test data. So I get the count, insert an account, and then comparing the value. That's it. So this first part is done. Second part, I'm searching for an account industry, right? For an account industry. I'm searching for an account industry. So what I'm going to do, yeah, this is a method we use to search an account for industry. So I no need to prepare the test data here, right? So remove all this part. That's it. I'm going with that whatever the data we prepared. Okay, we already prepared the test data in the at test setup annotation. So we are just testing your logic. That's it. The test data is prepared in one common place. Similarly, for contact search, I'm not going to prepare the test data. Just remove that part and just go with the testing. Make sense to all of you? Right. So what is the problem here? A test class.
Public. What is this?
No, not required. No? Cannot have any method signed. Oh, okay. See, the rule here is when you use test data preparation, when you have a test setup method, then you should not have CL data equal to true. Am I right? Both are true, two different process. When you're preparing your test data by using a test setup annotation, then you cannot have any method in the test class with CL data equal to true, because CL data equal to true is used to expose the organization data. Meantime, I cannot prepare the test data. So both cannot be included together, cannot appear together in the method. That's the reason it was given issue. Okay. Other than this, what we did here, the important point here is prepare the test data in one place, and it will be available to every method in the class. That's it. That's what we are trying to do here. You'll follow this? Everyone is good with this?
Ranjit, I have a question here. How does this member functions getting this uh, test data function being called initially? How does this data being loaded?
How this data being loaded? You run your test, right?
Correct, correct.
You
For
run your
individual
test.
functions, if I
The
want to
whole
run
method in
individual,
the class will
no,
be.
if I want to test in separate for
Mm.
third function, say, and how does this data is being loaded to that function? Because we are not loading this function, correct? We are just calling that function, third function, whatever you wrote.
You go here.
Uh-huh.
You're not seeing. You're not seeing the method test data account here, right?
Okay. Yeah,
Let
that's
me
what I'm
see here.
saying.
I'm
So how
testing
are these
the.
functions able to test that, load that data? That's what my question was, because you're not calling this from anywhere of this, any of these functions. So unless it's in the framework, that's fine, but that's what my question was.
It's a framework.
Okay.
It's a framework. Got me?
Yep. Okay.
It's a framework. Yes. That method you need not going to run it explicitly. It's not part of your testing here. See here. So that's a test
Okay.
data preparation part. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And other important thing here, uh, in terms of governor limits, we use a different DMLs when you prepare the test data here, right? So even without at test setup or with at test setup, whatever, we use DML here, DML, and that DML will be calculated against your actual, along with your actual testing DML as well. Okay, we are combining the a DML of test data preparation along with the actual DML, the DML in your business logic as well. So my objective is not to combine the DML of your test data preparation along with the DML of your actual class. In that case, your testing will not give the, you're not testing the actual scenarios because we are combining the DML of your test data preparation along with the actual testing, isn't it? The reason, suppose your actual class has 140 DML. Suppose you have 140 DML you're executing your actual class. You are using some 20 DML for your test data preparation. What will happen? A test will fail, but that is not the actual scenario, right? Because the test will fail when in one transaction when you exceed the 150 DML, right? But in product, what's the actual scenario here? I'm just going with only 140 DML, which is allowed, which should be allowed. But when you combine with your actual testing DML, you are not testing the actual governor limits. You are testing the governor limits combined with your actual testing as well. So which is not the actual testing. You should test your actual test with a fresh governor limit. That should not be combined with your a DML that you are performing for your test data preparation. The test data preparation DML is not your actual testing. The DML is we are using to prepare the test data. Am I right? Whatever the DML you're using here, that's going to be used for test data preparation. That DML should not be calculated against your actual testing DML. It's not only DML, whatever SOQL, a DML, whatever the governor limits are there, that should not be combined with test data preparations governor limit. So we need to test the actual testing business logic with a fresh governor limit. So that's the reason we okay, Salesforce has given a framework to separate your actual testing governor limit by including a method called test dot start test and test dot stop test. Okay, see here, this is my test data preparation part where I'm executing 10 SOQL statement, and this is my actual testing. So actual testing I'm going to include within the a keyword method test dot task start test. It means this is your static method of belongs to class. A static method. What is the static method name? Start test of a class, system defined class called test. So you are just going to keep your a logic inside this method, start test and stop test. So what will happen? Whatever the test that I prepared, that governor limits will be taken separately, and once you include this statement, and whatever statement you are going to execute here, that's going to have a fresh governor limit. So how many SOQL I can run in one transaction? 100. Am I right? In one transaction, I run 100. So any statement within this block, start test and stop test, is going to have a fresh governor limit. Either it can be SOQL or BML, whatever. And whatever governor limits we counted before the start test, that will be resumed after stop test. So 10 SOQL we executed. How many left over? 90. So it starts from 11 here. It starts from 11 here. So 90 more I can execute. Within this, I can have fresh governor limit. You'll follow this? Everyone is clear with this? So your actual testing, we are going to include with we are going to include the actual testing within this statement. Test dot start test and test dot stop test to get a fresh governor limit. You'll follow this? So, right. So which is your actual testing here? So this is my actual testing. Test dot start test. So in one method, I can only use one block. I cannot repeat this. Within one test method, I can use only once the start test and stop test. So after this stop test, suppose I'm executing an SOQL, one SOQL here. Am I right? So how many is left over? 99 SOQL I can run. So after stop test, 99 SOQL are allowed. But what about within this start test and stop test? I can have 100 SOQL, I can have 150 DML. So all those are applicable. Test the logic with fresh governor limit. We are using start test and stop test. You'll follow this? It's clear to all of you? Why you are using start test and stop test? Any question on this? Any question on this here? Any question? Why you are using start test and stop test? We will follow this. How to test a fresh governor limit? How to separate your governor limit? How to separate your governor limits from your test data preparation? How to separate your actual class governor limits, actual testing governor limits from your test data preparation governor limit, right? We are going to use a start test and stop test method, and within this method, whatever we test, that's going to have a new governor limits. So whatever governor limits you have before the start test, that will be resumed after stop test. And how many blocks I can include like this in one method? Only one block is allowed. We'll follow this. Right. With this, I just close the session now. Let's try to connect at 8:30. Uh, if I'm in online, okay, or else I will just drop a message in the chatter box whether I can connect or cannot. I can continue or we can whether we can connect tomorrow. And all of you.
Ranjit Ahmed here.